everyone, my name's Tara and I'm the owner of Divine by Designs LLC. It basically is a small little shop where I sell wreaths and different swags for all different seasons and holidays, and I create custom orders too. I have probably created wreaths for about 6 years now, only for me in my house, a few for friends, that's it. And this year, once I finally discovered that I have a wreath for my house for every single season, holiday, every single door, both interior and exterior, I thought, well, why not try to sell them? And that's how I created my small little company. Full-time, I am a high school counselor and a therapist, so I kind of just do this on the side as a hobby, but I love it and I can spend hours doing it. I grew up with a mom who was very artistic and creative, so I kind of learned a lot about making things from hand and different color schemes and what goes and what doesn't go. So it's kind of something that we always did together that I now do and would love to share it with you. So when I thought about what I wanted to do in creating my first video, I wanted to show you guys how to make a wreath, a very simplistic wreath, but a very beautiful wreath and one that you could possibly make yourself. So I am now creating a DIY kit of everything that you need, minus a hot glue gun that you would have to have at home already to make your own wreath. And I think starting it with some sort of simplistic design will make it a little bit easier for you to learn how to do it. And then if you're good at it, you can continue to create more and more designs that may be a little bit more complex. So with that being said, I'm going to try to show you how to make a wreath in my first video. So fingers crossed, wish me luck. Hey guys, so today we're going to make a Delilah and Rose wreath. The Delilah that I'm using is actually featured as a red, but it's not. It's more of a bright raspberry and a multicolored open rose. There is a little bit of greenish yellow in here, light pink, and then a darker pink that actually is very similar to this raspberry if you look closely, making it the perfect match. We are also going to use eucalyptus, a light green, not all of this, but some of it. And we're going to use lamb's ear, light green as well. It's a gray coated, super soft to the touch. I love it. I just think it brings an elegance to a wreath, a warm feeling. It's one of my favorite greeneries to work with. We're also going to use this 8-loop burlap bow that I made. It's made with wire, and then there's extra wire in the back, so you can easily just tie it around the wreath and secure it. And last but not least, the wreath. So I am using an 18-inch grapevine wreath. Now, something super important with grapevine, it is never perfectly round and it's never symmetrical because it's natural. And that's what makes the wreath so beautiful, is that it's not perfect. You'll see here, it's a little bit thinner. Here, it's a little bit thicker. That's totally okay. If you guys decide to buy this kit or just buy your own stuff and make it, you can basically move the wreath around to get the perfect shape for you. Sometimes the way the wreaths are made is they are a little bit oval. That's okay too. All depends on what you like and how you want to make it. So this one is pretty round, but again, not symmetrical, but it's going to work. For the stems, because we obviously don't need a stem this long, I use this tool and it basically just cuts through the stem. Super easy. Have to cut it down more, of course. If you don't have this tool at home, you can really just use a pair of scissors. And then what you would want to do is kind of get like a little bit of a cut in here. And then you just kind of bend it back and forth. It's a little bit harder to do, but it does eventually come off. Last but not least, I have a hot glue pot. I like the pots. I just feel like it's a little bit easier. I just kind of stick the stem in there. It's less glue strings, but if you don't have a pot, you can of course use a hot glue gun that you may have somewhere in your house. If you don't, you can go to the dollar store, use a 40% coupon and go at Michael's. I wouldn't necessarily invest in a pot unless you know you're going to be making more wreaths, because the pots are probably about double the price than a hot glue gun, depending on the type of hot glue gun you get. So now that you guys know everything that I'm going to be using, it is time to make the wreath. Okay guys, so what I usually like to do with the flowers is just kind of stick a few in without gluing it to see the position that I want. So we're going to use 5 flowers, 2 Delilahs, 3 roses. So the 3rd rose would be in the middle of both of the Delilahs, and then the other 2 roses on either side. So this is the middle of my wreath. What I then do is, if I know that this is the middle, I want to match the bow to the middle of the wreath. So I basically just get the wires, make sure they're flat, stretch them out, put it around the wreath. I don't tie it super tight right now, just in case I do want to move it. But basically what I'm doing is tying it behind the wreath right now. And then eventually when I make it tighter, I bury the wire in the grapevine so no one sees it, no one gets hurt. So see, now the bow is on. You can see the wire here. And then like I said, later on when I'm done, I tighten it and just bury it. Okay. So now that I know, for the most part, that the bow will be here and the flower will be there. Hold on, let me just position it a little bit better. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start gluing the flowers onto the wreath. All right, so I'm going to take this flower out. And like I said, I use a glue pot. I always make sure they're bent so I can kind of get the glue on and then hook it in the grapevine. See, that is what is great about grapevine, is because it's so tight. It can be a little bit hard sometimes to get the flowers in, but when you wedge them in with the glue, they are not going anywhere. And that is one of the most important parts, because most of these wreaths are outside. And even though I always recommend with my wreaths to have some sort of awning over them on your front door, the wind still hits them. I've had the wind blow my wreath all the way throughout my front lawn, all the way back by my garbage cans. The flowers never fall off. The wreath goes for a ride, but the flowers are good. So let's start gluing our flowers. Now, like I had said before, I want this flower to virtually be diagonal to the center of the wreath. So I see, or I'm sorry, the center of the bow. So here's the bow. Flower is going to go right in here. You can see that I'm kind of wedging it in to make sure it's in, and then it's in. We're good. It'll dry in about a minute. See? Bow, flower, diagonal. So now we're going to do the Delilahs. This stem, it's probably about 2.5 inches. I'm going to cut it down just a little bit more. Worst case scenario, it is better for you to keep it longer than shorter. If it's too short, it's not going to hold. I've done that before. There are floral sticks that you can buy where it's basically a stick that makes a fake stem and a wire that you wrap around it. But if you don't have to use them, why not? Just don't use them. So this is about the perfect height. And let me see, where is my ruler? So this is about 3 inches. So keeping the stem about 3 inches, now I bend the stem, dip it in my glue pot, try to wipe off the excess glue so that it doesn't stick everywhere. And again, find a little spot for it, wedge it in. I like when the flowers are close, but not too close. So they're touching, but it's not really overlapping. You can also spread it out if you want to. It's really whatever you prefer. So now we're going to do the second Delilah. Bend the stem. Dip it in the glue pot. Remember, if you don't have a glue pot, all you'll want to do is get your hot glue gun, put it on there. I have a silicone mat on my table. So with that silicone mat on the table, it does not stick. It's perfect. If you don't have that, you can use a paper plate, but everything will stick to the paper plate and then it's basically ruined. So just so you're aware of that. all we have is our 2 roses left. So I'm going to bend the stem. And then remember, put one on one side of one Delilah and one on the other. Oh, that one is tight. Okay, so there. And then the second one, same thing, bend, dip, and then secure it in. All right, so here we go. We have our bow on, we have our 5 flowers on, and now it's time for the greenery. The greenery can be tough because, again, it's not as symmetrical, right? This wasn't hard. Rose, Delilah, rose, done. Match the center to the bow, and that's easy. The greenery, it's not as simple because it's not green, 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 green. We have to fit it in somewhere, and we have to fit it in where it's secure, but it's also going to be seen. So, the flowers that I use, they come with all of these leaves. I always save them. If you're purchasing cheaper flowers, the leaves usually look really fake. I will not save them, but I typically buy higher quality flowers just because they look more real, they feel more real, they are more detailed, and the leaves are much better, where I could actually get away with putting this leaf in the wreath and it's still looking good. But I'm not going to use these right now. I'm not really sure if I want to, and I think that's my most favorite part of creating wreaths. I really honestly don't know exactly what I want to do right now, and I can do whatever I want. So just like how I positioned the flowers in here and then I hot glued them, I'm going to do the same thing with my greenery. So I'm going to start cutting some of the stems to save time, and when I'm done cutting the stems on the greenery, I will show you how to put it in. So what I did is I took all the lamb's ear and I started cutting it. Now with this, sometimes the stems are shorter depending on how the greenery is made and if it's a bunch opposed to a single stick. Buying it in the bunch, it is cheaper because a lot of the times when you buy just one single one, it's really, really long and you wind up having to cut it down anyway. I'm going to show you those floral sticks. Again, the pieces I used, we wouldn't need it, but in case you guys went and bought this stuff yourself and you couldn't do it, I'll show you how the floral stick works. Okay, so these are floral sticks. If you could see it, here's the stick and here is the wire. So what you do is, let's say get a piece of greenery or a flower, whichever. You put, see the stick next to that, and then you get the wire and you wrap it all around. If you really, really want to secure it, you can also hit it with a hot glue gun right here. It will not move. And then you get the stick and you stick it in the wreath. Like I said, I am not going to be using that right now because I was able to finagle to cut it at just about the perfect length for it to be secure in the wreath. So as you can see on the wreath, I kind of started to place some of the lamb's ear. I always start from the outside. It's just easier for me. I have seen other wreath makers where they put all the greenery on first. I've done that as well. Really, both ways work. It's whatever you're more comfortable with. I think when you're first starting out, it's probably easier to put the flowers on first. So here, I didn't glue anything in. Have the stick. Stick it right in here. See how I like it. And if I like it, great, then we can do it. Now, the other thing that you guys can do, because when you're dealing with leaves like this, sometimes they'll flip over backwards. They won't always be perfect. It's not meant to be perfect, but if you want it to be perfect, where everything is showing perfectly, what I would suggest doing is after you put it in, if you want one flipped over, I'll use like a leftover stem from a flower, dip it in my glue, put a little bit in the back of the leaf, and then glue it down. But you wouldn't do that first. First, you want to just glue the main stem in. So, dip it in my glue pot. I lift up the flower to see where I'm going. stick it in, and you'll be able to tell if it's secure just by the way it's going in. So now this actually landed pretty perfectly. I'm very happy about that. So fingers crossed this one does as well. Stick it in the glue, lift up the flower, find a place to secure it. That one is definitely an even better. And at the end, and I'll show you after I'm done with everything, I always do a little tug test, and 95% of the time we're good, but at times I haven't been, even though I thought I really got it in the right spot. You always want to do that to test to make sure it's secure. So that was easy. I was able to lift up the flowers. Now, with this back end here, it's a little bit harder because I can't see. So what you could do, what I have is, it's basically like a little wreath holder. It's not as secure though as this, where this is like a nail in the wall with a drywall holder. I really don't know what I'm talking about because I didn't do it. Not good at that stuff. But this, if you put the wreath on here on the floor, you could see it better. I'm not going to do that, but for you, it may be easier. You can even honestly sit down with the wreath in your lap. If you don't have one of these, hold it with one hand, stick in the stem with the other hand. So I'm basically going to start on the bottom of the outside and work my way up. So let's see. If we start here, just to kind of get an idea of how it's going to look. There we go. Now with this one, probably will wind up gluing down some pieces of it, but not yet. Like I said, that is the last piece. The first thing that we want to do is just secure it in the wreath. So let me just try the other way to see if I like that better. Kind of like this way a little bit better. It seems like the tops of the leaves are showing more. So dip it in the glue pot. Now, when I first started doing this, where I always messed up is I was so nervous, my memory would forget where I actually put it, and then I'd put it in the wrong spot. You know, listen, you are dealing with something that's very delicate, but believe it or not, it's also pretty rugged. So if you do wind up hot gluing something in there and then you're like, oh my God, what did I do? You can rip it out. You're not going to ruin the wreath. And now I'm not saying full force rip it out. Don't even look. You want to try to kind of wiggle it, but do not worry about worrying the wreath. The grapevine, it's super secure. So we're going to just keep doing this and dipping it in the glue pot. And then basically you want to stick the stem so we could see that this leaf is ending right here. So I'm going to stick the stem probably inside, right under it. So we're creating a trail. We don't want to leave gaps, or at least I don't usually like to leave gaps. So we're just going to keep going, dipping this in. Now, just something to warn you, if you do use a glue pot, make sure you hold the leaves in your hand, because you can actually wind up, and I know this because I have done it, you can actually wind up dipping the entire leaf in the glue pot. And then depending on the leaves, such as these, it ruins the look of the leaf. So we want to be careful. Okay, we're almost done and around that whole portion of the wreath for the lamb's ear. Just keep going and building up and building around. All right, now we just have this little spot right here. So I have one more left. Not sure if that's going to be enough, so I'm going to look and see. And I'm thinking that will do. So let's get this in there and see how it looks. Yep, that's good. If you can see, it's kind of trailing along. Now I'm just moving these leads, so this kind of fills that gap. This is kind of hanging over. This is here, this leaf is here, we met, but I'm noticing right here, there's a little bit of a gap. So first thing I'm gonna do is see if I move these leaves down, will that help? And it looks like it will help. Move this one over a little, move this down. Now it's basically meeting. So we are done with the lamb's ear. Now it's time for the eucalyptus. I did not cut the eucalyptus yet, but I can right now. And I'm going to actually cut it with you so you guys can kind of see where the struggle can be with the eucalyptus sometimes. So we have two struggles here. One, this is short. Now we could make it work, it depends, but this is also really long. So if I go and I just kind of stick it in here, it doesn't really look right. So what I'm going to do is actually cut this in half. If you could see, I'm gonna come closer. It's all one stem. And if you cut right here, you won't even notice that you cut it. Now, will this be smaller and this be thicker? Absolutely. But remember, not everything has to be perfect and symmetrical. Do you ever go outside and look at a flower and see all four perfect leaves all matching, all exactly looking alike? Not at all. Some are larger, some are smaller. Same exact thing with a wreath. But what I will do is if I know I'm doing that, I'm going to now cut a second one and cut it the same exact way. So there will be two of each in the wreath. So I'm just gonna count from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know where I am cutting it on both because both of these are exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're gonna cut it there as well. And you see I'm cutting it right above. And these are on pretty securely. It's not something that's gonna like move up and down and then you're gonna lose them. It's not like that at all. So now the question comes, where do I wanna put it? Well, I really just kind of wanna throw it in the wreath and see where it looks best. So let me go behind this Delilah since it's so big. I feel like there's a lot of extra room here. You know, I don't wanna overpower the roses. So there, if I put it in here, you see, you could see it. It's sticking out. It gives it just a change of scenery. It's not all lamb's ear. So I'm going to dip this in the glue and I'm going to put it right behind this Delilah and kind of stick it in. Oh, see, put it down too far, right there. Now I'm going to get that same matching piece from the second one I cut and I'm going to put it behind the other Delilah. So this is where I'm still being a little bit symmetrical, but not perfectly symmetrical. And you do not have to be symmetrical and exact at all. So same thing, I'm gonna pull back the Delilah, kind of see where I could stick it in, make sure I'm not hitting any of the lamb's ear. And this is definitely a tight squeeze, so you really gotta get a handle on it and kind of wedge it in there. And there we go. Now, the other thing that I love about this eucalyptus is it really is a great piece. There is a wholesale store called G&G Distributors. Their prices are a little bit higher, but their quality is phenomenal. I can actually bend this, and I usually do, because I kind of like, you see, like, I like that bend. It's not just sticking straight out. I'm going to do the same thing to the top and just bend it a little bit. Gives it a little bit more character. Now, this is very, very small. So for this one, I am actually going to use a floral stick. So let me pull one out. And again, if you do buy this kit from me, I will pre-cut everything and I will also give you floral sticks if I think you need it. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to dip this floral stick in the glue. Just a little bit. I'm going to put it on here and just hold it for a few seconds, maybe 20, for it to set. And then as it sets, I am going to wrap this wire around. Now, if you see this, I went from having no stem to a really, really long stem. And I really don't want to have that long of a stem either. I would like it being a little bit shorter. Super easy. Literally cut it. So here we go. I'm going to just cut it so that that's about 2 inches. Okay. And now I need to figure out, where am I putting this? I think I may put some on the inside here. So maybe I will put one here, one here, one here, and one here. Or I will just put 2. So I'm going to start with 2, see if it's enough. And if it's not, I'll cut another one in half and put another one. So here I go. I'm going to dip it in the glue pot. What's tougher with the glue pot and actually easier with a glue gun when you're dealing with the sticks are not bendable. So I can't kind of bend it to get it all covered. So again, I'm just using its stem and kind of using that as like a paintbrush to get this glue in. And then I am going to go and stick it in. And there is one eucalyptus. I'm bending it again, just so it gives it some character. And now I put it here, so I'm gonna put the other one there. I'm gonna have to do the same thing with the floral stick. So remember, you want to dip this itty bitty little piece in the glue gun or the glue pot for me. You can use your glue gun, whichever you have at home. Hold it for a little bit just so that it sets. Be careful when you are holding it. The glue is very hot. I have definitely burnt myself. Wasn't fun. Obviously I survived, but if you can get away with that, you know, try not to burn yourself. Also, I'm not going to show you my fingers because I'm on camera, but I have a lot of glue on my fingers right now. It comes right off, so you don't have to worry about that. Typically my nails are manicured, but through COVID right now, they are not. But even when they are manicured, I can easily get the glue off. It does not ruin your manicure, so it's nothing to worry about. I'm just over here cutting the stem. And then again, I'm going to dip this in my glue pot, and I'm going to use my stick to just get the rest of it covered because I can't bend it in the glue pot. Again, if you have a glue gun, it actually is easier when you are dealing with floral sticks. And then I'm going to kind of do the same thing where it's by that rose, but I'm going to put it in at a little bit different of an angle. Remember, this can bend. So right now it's just all about getting it securely in the wreath and covering that stick so we don't see it. So now it's in the wreath and we're going to bend it, and that's it. So like I said, I have these extra leaves. I really didn't know if I wanted to use it or not. So I'm going to go and look and see if I want to fit them in anywhere, if I like how it looks. And honestly, I really don't like how it looks because it's a darker green. This is a lighter green, and I really like the lighter green. So I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is just add a little bit here. So I have some extra lamb's ear. I'm going to see how would it look if I put some lamb's ear on the inside. And again, you may say, you know what, I think I'm done. I think I like it. And if you do, that's great. Me, I would like a little bit more. So I'm just going to see if I like that. And you know what? I kind of actually do. It's just giving a little bit of that green, and it's kind of filling it in. I think I'm going to go that route instead of actually even adding any more eucalyptus. So now let me go. I'm going to have to use a floral stick for this as well. If you could see, it's super short. And like I said, that's that issue with buying in the bunches, because sometimes when you're buying in bunches, not all of your leaves are going to come on a long stem. It's going to be a hit or miss. So we're just going to let this set for a few seconds. Like I said, I hold it down. You do not have to hold it down. I'm just used to always being burnt. You know, for years when I was in high school and college and graduate school, I waitressed, and you're always touching hot food and hot plates and whatever. So I almost kind of think I've lost feeling and sensation in my fingertips. But you know, whatever works. And now I really don't get burnt from it, but you could. So I would suggest being very, very careful with it. Set it down on a table. If you don't even want to touch it, like I said, you don't have to use the glue. I just like to. I feel a little bit safer knowing that it's very secure, but it is totally up to you. So what I'm doing here is, again, I'm just using one of my stems to put a whole bunch of glue on this floral stick to make sure that everything is covered and I can put it into my wreath and it's secure. Again, we're gonna lift up the flowers, stick this in, and there we go. So, looks like we're good. Again, just moving some of that lamb's ear. You know, sometimes they don't get the powder coating on the entire lamb's ear. It's really not that big of a deal. You can hide it under a flower. It's, again, okay if it doesn't look perfect. But now what I'm going to do is just kind of look at the wreath. You see how this leaf is flipped? You may not be able to see it from there, but it is. I don't like that. I'm going to flip it over and kind of just twist it and bend it so the right side is showing, and now it is. And then the final test, the tug test. So where I put everything in, each section I'm going to tug. See me tugging? Nothing is coming out. I'm even tugging hard enough that right now my wreath is about to fall off the nail. Okay, so this looks good. The flowers are definitely in, but I'm going to just tug anyway. What you saw me just rip off was a little bit of glue. That's the other piece too, is that with the glue, it gets stringy. Sometimes it drips. So you just want to do a quick inspection to make sure glue did not get anywhere. If it did, you can just, see, pull it right off and you're good. And for the bow, what you want to do to fluff it out is, here's the loop. Get your 2 fingers. There you go. It's fluffed. And you know what I love about the bow too, and not gluing it on, and that's why I purposely don't glue it on, is because you could always change out the bow. You know, I was telling a coworker of mine the other day, you know, I know buying wreaths can be expensive, and especially if you have it for every single season and every single holiday. This wreath, in my opinion, is a year-round wreath. There's light, there's dark. It doesn't really scream spring, summer, fall, or winter. So if it's not screaming one of those seasons, it's every season. And then what you could do is add. So for Valentine's Day, take this bow off, put a red bow or a heart bow. For, let's say, Thanksgiving or the fall, they have something called wreath enhancement. So you could get a scarecrow. I actually have one on a wreath that I made on my fall preview on my website. And you can kind of put it in there. So there's a lot of different things you could do to add a little personal touch so that it is going with the season, but you're not changing the most expensive part of the wreath, which is the wreath and all of the flowers. So I hope I did great on my first video. I hope you guys really, really liked it. If you have any questions, I will give you my contact information. If you're interested in buying this kit, I am going to be making a few do-it-yourself kits with different flowers. This, maybe some hydrangeas, different colors. If you want a different type of wreath or flower, you can always tell me. And if you are going to buy one and you are going to make it, good luck. And I hope you have the best time. Thanks for watching, guys.